Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to Beyond the Hashtag.
You are now locked into the Beyond the Hashtag podcast.
Hashtag BTHPOD.
I'm your host, Stephen, and I'm joined by a very, very special guest. I'm joined with ex-professional footballer and actually fellow podcaster, Henoc Mukendi. Welcome, Henoc.
Yeah, Stephen, thank you very much for having me on your platform. I really appreciate it, bro.
No, it's good to have you on, bro. And there's a good reason why, I'm excited to have you on and to share your story and to just have a chat about, what we speak about on this podcast, which is, solutions to discrimination in football, and how your experiences can help elevate that discussion and take it to another direction. So yeah, it's due to be a good conversation. So thanks for coming on, bro.
Definitely, no problem.
Cool. Just a quick one before we get started, just for our listeners. So yeah, thanks again for everyone who tuned into our previous episode and all the engagement that you guys have been giving, both verbally to myself and on the platforms, social media, YouTube, that kind of stuff. It's very much appreciated. And, even anyone who sends me an individual message to say, they've listened to the podcast or, they like ping me on at work and stuff, like all those kind of things, you don't know how much it motivates me and drives me to continue this conversation and to continue moving the platform. So yeah, just wanted to recognize the people who've been doing that because it really does mean a lot. And yeah, just click the notification button, all that engagement stuff you guys already know, subscribe, like and comment, all the usual stuff, because again, it helps my exposure, it helps my growth, all that good stuff. But without much ado, Henoc, we will jump into the episode and a bit about you. And as I said, there's a very special reason why I've brought you onto this podcast, but I want you to kind of tell the listeners and the viewers a bit more about your story. So we'll start from like where you grew up. You grew up in Congo and then coming to England, and sort of starting into your football career. So the floor is yours, bro.
Yeah, so my name's Henoc Mukendi, ex-professional football player. Came through the ranks at Liverpool FC. So a little bit about my background. Born in Congo, grew up there until maybe I'd say 7, 8 years old. Came over to the UK with my brothers and my mum mainly. My dad wasn't allowed in the country at the time. So I actually came into the country as an immigrant back in 2002, I think, if I remember correctly. So obviously just came looking for a better opportunity, better life and things like that. Obviously I was always playing football even since back in Congo as a kid. But obviously I didn't know that you could have that as a profession, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought people just played it for the fun.
Jokes,
I just think they just did it for fun, you know what I mean? I never knew that they got paid and all this kind of stuff. So it was just like a passion of mine. And like I said, just grew up as a normal kid really in the UK, going to school, playing football. At 11, I signed for my first Sunday league team when I went with a friend of mine. He went for a trial at a club. And I just basically went there to support, but because I was on the sideline doing lots of skills and things like that, the manager just came over and he's like, "How old are you?" Because I'm a tall person. Because I'm 6'5" now.
Yeah.
Back then I was 11. I was probably 6 foot back then as well.
Man.
So he's come over. He's asked me how old I was. I told him I was 11, and he's like, "Do you play for a team?" So I was like, "Oh no, no, I don't."
Yeah.
Don't think I'm good enough for a team, basically. So when that's happened, I've obviously he's turned around to me and said, "Yeah, like, why don't you come train with us and then see how it goes." So in the end, end up basically training with the team, and it was just from then on I started basically playing for a team. Everyone was at that time wanted to be like strikers and score the goals and stuff like that. But for me, because I just wanted to play, I was basically I started playing as a centre back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was like my first position. I was playing as a centre half, but I was scoring a lot of goals because I had like a nick for it, a talent for it. So I was scoring a lot of goals. And then when I went on to high school, a friend of mine was already playing for Sheffield United feeder club. And I got picked up there. And then basically the manager put me up as a striker. So I was playing as a centre forward from there. After a while, my family moved to Manchester, where we're still living till this day. started playing Sunday League again, and then I got picked up at Liverpool. A scout came in when I was 13,
Okay.
and basically like said that I was very raw, but he's seen a talent there. So I was quick, I was strong, I was very aggressive on the ball. I used to love running with the ball and things like that. And he said like if they could like sharpen that up,
Mold
and
you,
yeah, mold me into something, then I got something there. So at 13, I went on trial at Liverpool. I got given a 6-week trial, signed after like 4 weeks. And then from then on, I was like fully fledged, like in the academy. I was like just over the moon. I signed a 2-year deal from 14 to 16. And yeah, that was like my youth years, like my pre-youth team years, sorry. Yeah, that was the main, like growing up, that was kind of how it all went down. Yeah.
No, I hear that. And then you touched on Liverpool as well. So I guess, like, how was that whole academy experience? How long did you spend there? And then I guess why did it come to an end? And then you can shed some light on, playing with, Raheem Sterling and Gerrard, that kind of thing. Like how was that in its entirety?
Yeah. So the academy experience was amazing. So for me, it was, so like I said, I signed at 13, contract all the way up until I was 16. So when I was 15, so I was in the last year of my 2-year deal. The academy was taken over by 2 guys, a guy called Pep Segura and Rodolfo Borrell, who's the Man City assistant coach right now. So they've come in from Barcelona at the time. This was under 16, so within that year, they've I think it was in like 3 or 4 games. They've obviously been watching me all pre-season. I've really impressed them. I'm playing as a centre forward. I'm scoring left, right, and centre. And then within the first 3 games of the season, I was offered a scholarship for the following 2 years. So signed my scholarship. So before I signed my scholarship, they've come to my house to speak to my parents about me moving over to Liverpool, completing my education over there, and obviously, basically, they believe that I have all the tools to basically make it as a professional player. If not at Liverpool, then they'll help me as much as possible to maintain or create a career somewhere else. So this is what they promised basically to my mum when they came to see me. And then from then on, so I moved to Liverpool. I went to high school over there in year 11. So I went to the same school, as I mentioned, with me, Raheem Sterling, and a couple of other kids. The experience in the school was, looking back on it, was a good one, but it was like the first time I'd been like faced personal racial confrontation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first time. So obviously before that, I'd heard people be racist or whatever, not like from a distance or from afar and stuff, but I'd never had it personally.
Like physically abused at you.
Yeah. So, and the craziest thing about it was never like face to face in person with the kids in school. So it was always like on social media or on the phone, or they'd get my number, and you know what I mean? So that was what it was. But I still took it personally. Obviously, I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
So obviously I went through a bit of that. Obviously, it was mainly through jealousy and things like that. So
because they knew your status, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So they knew I was at the school because of football. I was in Liverpool. I'd already been handed a 2-year deal for the next couple of years, basically. So I was kind of quite secure in that. So they just obviously resorted to trying to racially abuse me. Raheem went through the same thing as well. So with my situation, a kid was racially abusing me for months on end. I didn't really respond. And then he ended up bringing a knife into school to try and basically confront me with it.
Jesus.
That didn't go as planned. And basically the school got involved and Liverpool got involved.
Yeah.
That ended up being sorted out in court. So Liverpool handled that situation really well, to be fair with them. And I remember the situation with Raheem as well. A kid from the same group of kids that were confronting me were trying to confront him as well. One kid one time followed him home after school, just hurling abuse at him, calling him all sorts of names. Raheem wasn't responding and kept walking, and then this kid just ran over and spat at him. And obviously, cut a long story short, seen him a couple of days later with 2 black eyes. So he's that
You
was
could, yeah, you can tell, yeah.
So that was handled that was handled accordingly. So after that, Liverpool decided to bring Raheem out of school at the time. So he was brought out of school, and then after I graduated year 11, so we both started in the youth team together.
Yeah.
We played in the same youth team for 2 years. Second year, he progressed on with the reserves and with the first team. I was playing reserves and youth team at a certain point.
Yeah.
And then I impressed. So actually, I went before the end of the youth team years. There was a point where I came back from an injury and I went on loan to Barnsley for a month to get a couple of games and stuff like that to get myself fit. So I played there with like John Stones and Ruben Lazarus and all them lot. So I went there, played a couple of games, and a lot of clubs thought I'd left Liverpool when that happened.
Okay.
So, and then they watched my games. I played while I was at Barnsley, so a lot of clubs came sniffing in, offering me deals left, right, and centre. So it was like Leicester offered me 3 years, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, Barnsley, Leeds, Derby, Nottingham Forest. There was quite a few clubs that around the time, Rotherham. So it was more like Yorkshire clubs and like Midlands clubs and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of stay up north, sort of thing. So when that's happened, I've basically the club of Liverpool have let me know that, look, you've got all this interest, but we don't want you to go anywhere, so we're going to offer you a 2-year deal.
Okay.
So they've offered me a 2-year deal. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I was over the moon when that happened. Because at the time I was thinking if they offered me something, it could be a 1 year or whatever, and I was thinking
it sounds stable. So
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to take it. But when they offered me the 2 years, I sat down with them and negotiated the terms and everything. I had an agent at the time who I'd recently signed with, but he basically didn't come to negotiate my deal for me because he wasn't getting no money out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he didn't earn me that deal, and I'd only signed with him a few weeks. He wasn't going to get anything out of it, so he kind of didn't bother. Yeah, so the relationship was just not great from the get go. And he had a couple of players now at the time now that are like England internationals and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a learning curve from early, if that makes sense. I signed my 2-year deal. I'm thinking, you know what, I'm gonna coming back in next season and then just hit the ground running. I'm like getting ready, fit, making sure like I'm right in all the ways possible. And then what ends up happening is Ken Dalglish, who was the first team manager at the time, and he's the person that gave me my reserve team debut, ends up getting sacked. So Ken Dalglish got sacked. Brendan Rodgers comes in. He starts sacking people left, right, and centre. So academy staff are getting sacked, first team staff are getting sacked. Like it's just all madness. So originally I was meant to go on loan to Belgium with Royal Antwerp. So that got put off the table. And then when I come back from Royal Antwerp, I was meant to go to New York Cosmos. So it was all like first and second divisions to get
experience.
Football. So that's what was supposed to happen. And basically that got pulled off the table. And then the academy director at the time, a guy called Frank McParland, he said, look, like basically with the club, they don't want this to happen. I'm probably not going to be here for much longer myself, but and with the way Brendan is coming in, you're an attacker. Your opportunities may be limited under him. So obviously I was aware of that from the minute Brendan came in. And so he said, but I'm going to help you out. I'm going to send you on loan to Northampton for 6 months. So obviously you can get your games, hopefully raise up your stock as well. So that no matter what happens at Liverpool, at least you've got that experience there. Of the league and show what you can do and this, that, and the other. So I went to Northampton, had a decent loan, played as a left winger. We had a pretty decent team that year because we reached the playoff final. So I was there for 6 months. Really, I was only really needed for, I'd say, 2-3 months. But then the rest of the time, once the guy that was injured came back from injury, I didn't really play as much. But I was always in the squad, on the bench, come off the bench and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I was always involved. Come back from Northampton, and the feedback I was getting from Liverpool was that the guy at the time who now became the academy director or the reserve manager / academy director, Alex Singlethorpe, was looking forward to seeing me, and he's like excited. Basically, he's heard good things about me, so I'm like excited now, thinking I've got men's football under my belt. I'm gonna go back and I'm absolutely just
smash Liverpool.
Smash Liverpool. If Brendan won't give me the opportunity to with the first team, I'm going to try and force it regardless, you know what I mean, by doing really well in the reserves and try and get even like a cup game in there, or
Yeah.
Carabao Cup or something like that. So yes, I was trying all sorts of things basically. But so when I got back to Liverpool, within 3 days of me being back, the new manager Alex pulls me into a meeting, and he basically lets me know that although I had a good loan at Northampton, things have changed and I'm no longer in his plans.
Hey.
Didn't give a reason, just said things have changed and stuff like that, which I'm like, okay, fair enough. If that's your opinion, fair play. So I said, well, if that's the case, and I'm not in your plan, because he said to me that my training time with the first team would be limited.
Okay.
My game time in the reserves would be limited.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So basically, they're trying to like go after a certain type of player, and I've identified that I'm not that.
Okay.
So I was just like taking it in, but I was thinking, okay, this is a bit of a strange conversation.
Yeah.
What I was hearing previous weeks is that you're looking forward to see me.
Yeah.
And so when he said that, I said, you know what, that's fair enough. You know what I mean? I appreciate you sitting me down telling me this. If that's the case, then the club may as well like pay me off now. I don't have a problem with leaving Liverpool and going somewhere else, because I've done it previously, and I can do it again. You know what I mean? I know clubs are interested in me. Looking back on it now, I don't think he liked that as an answer. And then he just turned around to me and said, look, the club aren't in a position to basically pay you off right now. We'll basically see how the season goes.
So they just want you to just chill there, basically, and not really play.
Yeah. So the remainder of that season, I basically just trained. I didn't play one reserve game. I just trained for 6, like the whole, like just didn't. Yeah, no reserve games played or whatever. And I kind of lost my head a bit, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stay focused. Season finished. I was meant to go on holiday. I didn't even go on holiday that year. I stayed home, worked on my fitness, trained. I'm like, you know what? This guy for some reason doesn't like me, but I'm gonna do everything I can to prove him wrong. To you know what I mean? Like, just because like there's been times in the past with Rodolfo and them guys where they've challenged me. You know what I mean? When there's times where I wasn't playing and he set a challenge to me when I was in the youth and said, look, you're a good player. This is what you need to do to get into the club, into the team. Sorry, you're not technically one of the best, or whatever, but that's not your strength. You know what I mean? Your strength is being strong, being quick, using your pace, using the power in your final third.
Yeah.
You do that, you can make a really good career for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's your strengths. Play to your strengths.
Play
you
to
know
strengths.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Isolate defenders in 1v1 situations and all that kind of stuff. So I knew what my strengths were due to the previous year, obviously working with top managers and stuff like that. So when that's happened, with Alex coming in, he's basically not telling me what I need to do to get in the squad, what I can do to improve, not like basically like no feedback at all.
Yeah.
So I've come back, trained with Rochdale because I wanted to go on loan there for the season. Done really well. From what I was hearing is that Rochdale wanted to take me on loan for a whole season. And then if I do well there, they'll offer me a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, depending on how well I've done after I leave Liverpool, basically.
Yeah.
So I've like thinking, okay, great. Packed up all my bags, thinking I'm gonna go back to Manchester, stay at my mum's, stay close to my family.
Yeah.
Like have that support whilst I'm, you know what I mean?
Playing for Rochdale,
So I'm thinking that's great, like perfect scenario for me. So whilst I'm waiting for this Rochdale move to get finalised, I get a call and I'm being told that I'm no longer going to Rochdale and I'm gonna go up to Scotland to Partick Thistle.
Where's that come from?
Yeah, literally, that's what I was like, where's that come from? Because like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where that came from. So it was out of the blue. So it came out of nowhere. And then next minute I've basically, the next morning I'm on a train basically going to Scotland, going to Partick. So like, didn't know what was going on really. So I've got to the train station, got a taxi to the club. I arrive at the club and next minute it's just like paparazzi everywhere, taking pictures, and I'm thinking, whoa, like, okay, maybe this is a big deal, you know what I mean? Because I had to do research on Partick wear and things like that. So that's happened. And then I've met the manager and he's telling me like, look, I've watched you last season when you was at Northampton. I think you're a really good young player. I think you'll do really well up in Scotland with your pace, your power, your physicality. You'll be like, you'll do really well. I want you to be one of the main guys for my team. Literally, like as we were walking after signing the papers and stuff like that. So I'm thinking like, okay, this could be something to me. Yeah, I do really well. So I played a couple of. The manager said to me he wanted me to play as a number 9. I played a couple of games in pre-season. I played some in number 9, some in the left wing, or whatever not. But I'd done really well. Felt fit, felt sharp. First game of the season, I'm really positive, thinking I'm going to start.
Yeah.
So I've paid for like all my family to come up.
Yeah.
Played against Dundee United. Basically, didn't start. I was on the bench. Drew that game 0-0. I didn't come on.
Oh wow.
Then after that, the manager said, "Yeah, don't worry. There's plenty of games in the." So I'm like, "Okay, cool. Stay focused. Be humble, and just get ready for the next one."
Yeah.
So in the midweek, we played against a team that we'd already beat in pre-season in a cup game. Full time, it was 0-0. He's brought me on after extra time. We ended up winning. I think it was like 1-0 or something like that. I was involved in like the goal and stuff. So we've won. As we're leaving the club, paparazzi again. "Oh, you've done well. How you feeling?" Like, I'm like, yeah, like glad to get my first couple of minutes for the club. Obviously, hoping to kick on. And then the second weekend of the season, we've travelled up to Ross County. It was so like Inverness ways up north. Like it's 3 hours from Glasgow, so it's like right at the top of Scotland. So we travelled there the day before, get there, and then manager didn't say nothing to me. It was fine. I'm thinking I'm gonna play at least a half or something. The next morning, we arrive at the stadium. Everyone's on the pitch as we're going in. The manager calls me over, so I'm thinking, okay, this could be maybe him telling me that I'm going to start, so not to be shocked or whatever, you know what I mean? Because that's usually what happens if you're going to start. If you don't already know, then the manager would like give you a pre-warning sort of thing. And the next one, so he's pulled me over and asked me how I felt I did on Wednesday. I said, it was okay. I only played 10, 15 minutes, but it was good to finally get out there. And he said, yeah, I agree with that. But we're going to try something different today. You're not in the squad. So I was just like, from the minute he said that, I just like blanked out. Like, I just blanked out. Like, it was just, blanked out. I think that game we lost like 2-0. And after that, I was just never in the squad again. I was traveling all up and down Scotland. We was getting battered. Like, I mean, there was one game we got beat in winter, like November times. Travelled up to Dundee, cold, like very cold. Got beat 5-0. 2 weeks later, we went up to Aberdeen, which is even further up. Freezing cold. Got beat 5-0 again. Like, it was just, we was getting hammered left, right, and centre. And I'm not even in the squad, so I'm not even on the bench. Whilst before that in Northampton, I was making a bench, coming on. And Northampton had a way better squad and a better team than these guys. You know what I mean?
So it's not making sense at all.
At all. So it's just, the whole thing was just not adding up. And then whilst I was there, even the players asking me, like, "You're doing well in training. Why aren't you playing if you fell out with the manager?" I'm like, no, the manager just keeps telling me to wait for my opportunity. I'm calling Liverpool, texting Alex. He's telling me to stay up in Scotland. If I come back, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get suspended. I'm going to get fined. All these things. He's threatening me basically with it. So I'm staying up, obviously, because I'm like, I don't want to lose money, basically. That's the only thing I've got at the moment.
So it sounded like there's an underlying reason, though, why you're kind of getting pushed around like this.
I wish I had one. Because till this day, I don't know. But there's some new information that came out a couple of days ago, which I'll share with you in a minute. So like, Alex is telling me to stay up. Luckily, one of this coaching staff, because like I said, I get on with everyone, you know what I mean? So when the coaching staff came to me, there was a period where I was injured for like a week or two. When the coaching staff came to me and he was like, "Oh, like, but when you're back fit, why haven't you been playing? If you spoke to the manager, he fell out with him." I said, "Well, I was hoping you could tell me, you know what I mean? Because you're on the coaching staff." They said, "Okay, give me a couple of days, I'll find out and I'll let you know." And then when he's come back to me and he said to me that the reason I'm not playing is not down to the manager, it's above him. It's to do with the chairman and someone at Liverpool. Basically, I was sent up here and Partick didn't ask for me. So the whole thing when the manager was telling me about, "Oh yeah, what shit Northampton, you done really well."
Nonsense.
It was lies basically. So he was lying to me. So basically, they was lying to kids basically by the sounds of it. And then they brought me up here basically not to play, to basically lower down my market value because it shut up when I was at
Northampton.
Come back. So then now, because I've not played in the Scottish Prem, which there's more like highlight on it than League Two and stuff like that. So because I've not played there, more people have been like keeping an eye on me. So my market value shut down. Next thing, like I'm basically like not playing. And the next minute I get a call. So this bit is quite important. So now I kind of knew exactly what happened. So I get a call from one of the people at Liverpool, someone that I still speak to this day, he's said to me, "Oh, I'm gonna come up and see you tomorrow and just speak to you about something." So he's came up the next day and he's basically told me that basically the club have decided that they're gonna basically pay me off and release me.
Yeah.
Basically saying that because I've not played up in Scotland, it's basically the position they're in now as a club. I've not basically done what they wanted me to do, and they basically want to pay me off. So when that's happened, obviously, what I found out was basically they wanted to let me know this by the phone. So Alex wanted to call me on the phone to let me know that I'm getting released. But then the person that came up to see me, he's someone that was a coach. At the time, he was like the education and welfare manager.
Okay,
His role now at Liverpool is head of player care. So that's kind of like so he's now like involved in like, if that was to happen in this day and age, it wouldn't happen because he's there basically. But back then, he was like in a different kind of role, like education and stuff like that. But because I'd known him since I was 13,
you had a personal relationship kind of.
Yeah, I had a personal relationship with him. And he was like, "No, I'm not going to let this happen. You guys can't like let him know that he's getting released on a phone call. That's not right. I'm not letting that happen." He goes, and he took time out himself and said like, "I'm gonna basically go up and speak to him." So he's come up, told me obviously they're gonna pay me off, and I said, "Look, I appreciate you coming up, but we'll speak about it when I'm back in January." This is what I've said because my loan was up in January, so I'm thinking, January comes back, we'll speak about it then. And then obviously he's left, said take care, whatever. And then next thing, a couple of days later, the manager pulls me in for a meeting, and then he's saying, things haven't really happened for you up here the way we wanted it to. So we spoke to Liverpool, and basically we're going to terminate your loan early. This is like early December.
Wow.
So just go basically like Liverpool don't expect you back in until January.
Wow. So what are you supposed to do?
I just basically said, just go home. They basically said to me, go home. This is what the manager said to me. Like I remember very clearly, said, go home and spend Christmas with your family, and then just go back to Liverpool in January.
So mad. And you're like, and how old are you now? You're like early 20s.
19. No, just turned 20. Sorry, just turned 20 in November. So even though I'm 20, I'm still a kid, really.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Like that. So they've turned around and said that to me. So they basically said, yeah, so as of tomorrow you can go back. Basically, so the manager said to me, so I'm like, whoa, okay. Like, you know what I mean? I did packed up my bags, went back to Manchester, stayed at my mum's, during Christmas, and I remember getting a call a couple of days before Christmas saying I'm gonna have to go back to Liverpool on Boxing Day, I think it was, because the reserves got a game. I can't remember if it was between Boxing Day and New Year's or it was just after New Year's, but basically they had a game.
Yeah.
And they wanted me back for training, so I'm thinking, well, am I going to play or what's going on? You know what I mean? Come back, I didn't play none of the games. Obviously, just training again. But, so he's cut off my Christmas short as well and my New Year's.
But to not even play?
Yeah, to not even play, just to train. January comes, and at the time I used to be a Congo Youth International. And I've basically got selected to go to the African nations with the under-20s for Congo, and I would have been the captain as well. But I was say Liverpool. It was actually Alex who basically turned around to me and said, he basically saying I can't go because Congo didn't want to pay for my travel and things like that. I'm like, well, I don't need them to. I've got my own money to pay. With how they work, they will give me the money back anyway. You know what I mean? In previous years when I'd traveled, Liverpool had paid for my travel. You know what I mean? And then when Congo would like want to basically pay, they just give me the money back anyway, because Liverpool's like, look, it's a good opportunity for you. We want to get your exposure out there, so we'll pay it. You know what I mean? So Liverpool used to do that anyway when it was under certain coaches.
But now,
so now it's just so it's just all crazy. So Alex has turned around to me and he said, he doesn't basically. He doesn't want me. Well, let me know what I mean. Basically, I can't go to the African nations, because of the traveling issue. But I'm like, I can sort that out myself. I'm getting paid more than enough from the club, so that's not a problem. And then plus Congo will pay me. I'm only paying the flight to Belgium,
Yeah.
And then they'll pay the flights to wherever it is in Africa that we was going. I don't know if it was Guinea or somewhere that year.
Yeah,
Wherever
yeah.
it was. They'd pay from Belgium to there. So I'm only paying like £150, not much, you know what I mean? But yeah, he's basically turned around to me and said no. So I've missed out on an opportunity that year. Bearing in mind, Liverpool are trying to pay me off and release me.
Yeah.
I've missed out on the opportunity to basically go away with Congo and basically put myself in a shop window, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know a lot of people would probably say, "Oh, why don't you take the payoff and get released at Liverpool and then go with Congo?" But with how it happened, it was a short notice kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was like, we want you there next week or whatever, in 2 weeks or something. So with how it would have happened, if I was to play the African nations, obviously I'm still a kid, so I'm learning on the job as it happened. But if I was to go to, my plan was to go to African nations as a Liverpool player, show what I can do, but also when people look and they'd see that I've got 6 months left on my contract, and as a 20-year-old, they could come in and
get you for free. Yeah.
For free. Yeah, exactly. So, or if I come back to Liverpool and took off my payoff and then sign somewhere else or something like that. You know what I mean? I didn't mind going abroad. So if it's a team in France, Belgium, wherever, I didn't mind all that. So, but yeah, they said no. So they've ruined that chance for me. And then after that, he just basically started making me train with the youth team, like just training all the time, constantly. And then the worst thing is on days after training, he'd pull me aside and he'd be like, "Why aren't you basically, why are you still at the club?" He'd be asking me, "Why haven't you taken the payoff?" Alex would, why are you still at the club? Why haven't you taken the payoff?
Yeah.
You know you're not going to play. You know you're not going to get any chances. This is what he's literally saying to me. Like, sometimes in his office, sometimes as we're walking, sometimes
corridor,
on the pitch, corridors, like for meetings. It was constant, just basically putting pressure on me to basically pay off. You know what I mean? But these times, I know that if I leave now because I've not played, like no one's gonna want to sign me right now. So I'm behind the scenes. I'm trying to make connections and contacts with clubs that previously showed interest in me. You know what I mean? So I've done that. I managed to do that, and eventually I took like a small payoff. It was literally nothing. Done that, and I had a couple of clubs interested. So I had like Sheffield United saying to me, "Come in," and they had a deal on the table that I could sign. So that I'd be moving back to Sheffield at that point. I had Bury offering me a trial. I had Leyton Orient offering me a trial. I had like one or two other clubs, but we didn't really entertain them. But like with the Leyton Orient at first sounded very serious. Bury was close to home. Sheffield United was back home, and it's a big club. So I was like, I really wanted to exercise those
offers.
Offers, So that year I've gone on holiday, came back. Like, because I said to you before, the previous year I didn't go on holiday because I was like,
you're training,
But that year, as soon as the season, as soon as I got paid off, went on holiday, but I come back before the end of the season, basically just working hard, got myself fit, and then we've gone to go for the Sheffield United contract. We'll get there, and basically said that they've pulled the deal off the table.
Sheffield pulled the deal off.
They didn't give a reason. They just said that they're looking at other players, basically. So the deal that they had for me was pulled off the table.
Right, this pattern is sounding very, very mad.
Yeah, so that's happened, and then a couple of weeks later, we spoke to Bury, so Bury wanted me in. So next minute I've gone into Bury on that morning, and then there's a couple of kids on trial there. So when we've gone there, the manager at the time, a guy called Kevin Blackwell, so he's there.
Oh yeah, I remember Kevin.
So Kevin Blackwell was like getting all the trialists in to speak to them in the morning. I think it was like 7 or 8 of us on trial. So when it was my turn, I think I was like maybe like the 4th or the 5th one. So when that's happening, he's shouted next. So the next person's coming, so it was me. And he goes, so they're walking, it's like, "Yeah, Mukendi, sit down, leave the door open." But before that, it was everyone else when they were going in, they was closing the door. So I was leave it open. So I'm thinking, okay. So I sat down, and he goes, "Right, I've heard a lot of good things about you, but not like screaming, but it's like kind of like shouting."
Yeah, like he raised his voice basically.
He raised his voice, like speaking a bit aggressively to me, which I'm just like, okay, a bit weird, but whatever in it, you know what I mean? And then next minute he's just like, yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about you, a good player, this, that, the other, but I know you've got a lot of issues, a lot of problems with your attitude. So when he said that, I was thinking, fuck, like, he's basically thinking I'm my brother. So I just said, sorry, Gaffer, but I think you may have me mistaken for my brother, because my brother at the time was playing in the league as well with Macclesfield. And he goes, no, this is what I mean. Don't answer me back. Like, he's just like yelled at me, and I'm thinking, like, okay, like I just kept quiet then. And then he's turned around to me and he said, so originally before we went in, from what we understood is that I was there for a week, and if I do well, I'd go for the 2-year deal. He's now turned around to me and said, you're here for 3 to 4 days, and basically, if you do well, I'm gonna offer you a 1-year deal. So he's basically pulled back on the whole
everything.
thing.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, now go and get changed. We're out in 20 minutes or whatever. So I've gone in, got changed, and then we've gone out to train. Whilst training, he's making me do exercises of like, I've gone in as a striker, but he's making me do exercises of like defenders. And midfielders. So he's not giving me the right chance or the right opportunity.
Yeah.
After like 3 days, he's pulled me aside and said, yeah, it's not really working. I've not seen what I've wanted from you.
Shock.
So obviously, yeah. So I didn't really get an opportunity. And then next minute, a couple of weeks later, we speak to it was Russell Slade, it was at the time.
Yeah.
Orient. So we're thinking I'm gonna go down to London for a week or 2, 10 days, do my thing there, like, you know what I mean, give it the best I can. I think I was in League One at the time, doing really well. A couple of days before I was meant to go down, Russell Slade gives me a call and he's like, same thing, Mukendi, how you doing? I'm like, good. But then the same thing like Kevin Blackwell said,
attitude.
You're a good player, but I've heard about your attitude. So when you come here, I want you to do this. After that, when that's happened, I've called the agent. I'm like, look, like it's the same pattern again. Something's going on. I don't know what it is, but I don't want to put myself in that situation, because if the same thing happens again, and it's going to affect me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't end up going to Leighton Orient, but off the basis of that the manager already had me like he already had a bad
picture about you. Yeah,
already. So like I know I'm already at a disadvantage. So I didn't end up going there. After that, I remember like sending emails to literally every single club from Premier League all the way down to conference, begging for trials.
Wow.
And like not one club got back to me.
Jesus.
Not one club. So there's like 100 teams between the Prem and
and the conference. Yeah.
Literally, like not one club got back to me. One of the things that they did at Liverpool as well, which is a bit foul, was we used to have like profiles online of like all our games and our stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whilst I was on loan, my profile was somehow deleted. When there was a new guy that came in, like a new like video guy, basically.
Yeah.
He somehow lost all my files. Somehow, yeah. I'm like, well, don't you have hard copies? And he's like, oh, well, that was the last guy who had the hard copies, and like, so I couldn't even have like videos of me between under 16 to reserves.
Like reserves, yeah,
playing because of what happened. So like I couldn't, you know what I mean? So I was basically having to beg people by word of mouth and say,
literally, no evidence.
Have you got a video? Well, no. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what's going on? You know what I mean? So I was at a disadvantage already. And then a couple of months after that, I went back to Scotland again, to basically give it a go. When that's happened, it was a team called FC Chemist. So I've gone there, trained. I think at the time I was training like this was maybe like my 3rd or 4th day of training with the first team, doing really well. But because I'm not signed, I wasn't allowed to play. I think it was like a cup game they had. So the next morning I trained with the reserves. Even though I was going to be a first team player anyway, like I was absolutely smashing it, doing really well there.
Yeah.
But while I was training with reserves, basically one of the players ended up calling me the N-word during training.
What, teammates? Yeah.
Yeah. So not just once, but he said it like 3 or 4 times.
Oh wow.
Like,
was that like out loud in front of everyone, or like little digs?
Out loud. First time he said it, a couple of the other players laughed. But I tried to ignore it. This is how mad it is. Like I tried to ignore it because I'm like, do you know what? I'm not even here for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I'm with the first team. Like let me ignore it. And a couple of minutes later, he said it again and said it again and said it again within like a space for a few minutes. And I just seen red. When that's happened, I just seen red. I've ended up like basically taking the kid to the ground.
Yeah.
Like basically strangled him.
Yeah.
And I've went in, I didn't even get showered, just put my clothes on, went back to the hotel, texted the agent. I'm like, look, I don't want to sign at this club.
Yeah. Yeah.
How am I getting treated like this with no one like stepping in? And
Yeah.
I'd lost my head, and it was a lot of anger, a lot of frustration over what had been happening in previous months as well.
Yeah.
Because the agent, he at the time, he was in Belgium, and he was going to come over to Germany at the time. He was obviously begging me, saying, look, the club actually do want to sign you. They're offering you a 2-year deal, and like whatever money he said, it was this, that, the other. Like, please don't make that decision to basically say no, because they really, really do like you, and basically a lot of things.
Yeah,
but at that time, I'd just seen, because I was saying to myself, like, I'm not going to be able to accept an apology. At that time, I was 20 years old. I was very angry.
Yeah.
Obviously, at how things were happening in my life at that time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to be able to accept an apology for him intentionally racially abusing me.
Yeah.
And if I also see him again in and around the training ground, I'm going to have to say something or do something. So I don't want to put myself in that
environment.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So after that, I was like, look, I'm paying my own flights. I'm going home, basically. Looking back on it now, obviously, I'm much more older. I do kind of regret not taking that deal, because the club itself, the setup, everything was really good. But obviously, at the same time, I shouldn't have to deal with racism.
No, absolutely.
In a game like football,
or anywhere, like, as in, like, if I got like racially abused in my like workplace, and no one was really intervening, like, you can't help feeling that type of way to not not want to be in that environment again, and literally like say, okay, now I'm switching jobs. Like, even if they apologize, like, it's not enough to make me want to come back and be in that environment.
Exactly. Yeah. So the way I looked at it, I thought, like, it's not something that, especially from a teammate as well, like, I shouldn't be
exactly.
You know what I mean? So
it's mad.
So the whole thing was just a bit mad. So I've come back, and then after that, I was just playing, like, because basically no clubs, and no like professional clubs which weren't interested in me. So I was just basically jumping around from non-league teams, jumping around everywhere from non-league to non-league, and then I got an opportunity to go. Well, not having an opportunity, like, I was just stressed at that point. Went abroad to Paris for a bit, because my dad lives in France. So lived in Paris for a few months. Almost a year. I was there training with a couple of clubs, getting fit. Got the opportunity to train with PSG, with the reserves at the time. Trained a couple of times, played a game, done really well, scored 2, and then this was like towards the end of the season. They've come to me saying, we really liked what we've seen. We'll basically, in the new season, in a couple, which is like 6 weeks, we'll be in touch with you to let you know how it goes. So when that's happened, I've still stayed fit, but then I've come back to the UK, and I'm working with a certain agent. He's now telling me that, because this time I'm 21. He's now telling me that Stoke and Newcastle are interested in me.
Okay.
They want to bring me in. I'll be training with the first team, playing reserves. I'll get the opportunity because of my size and stuff like that. They've seen me like they think that they could, obviously, with me being at Liverpool so many years, they know that obviously shows I'm a good player. And with me being 6'5", then it's something that I'm basically their kind of player, they'll say. So that, obviously I'm there. I'm basically like, so I'm basically there, and then they've turned around to me like, oh yeah, like, we've gone on to, I think we went to Stoke first, spoke to them. They went up to Newcastle a couple of days later, spoke to them, and they're like, like, just give us some time, like, we'll put the package together to offer it you. I'm basically there waiting for the offer from these guys, Stoke and Newcastle. And then my dad gets back to me and said, look, PSG have come back, and they're saying they basically want you to come back and do a medical.
Oh wow!
And they want to sign you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, there's no real guarantees.
First team football and stuff. With
the reserves. But also the mind frame that I was in, I wanted to prove people in England wrong.
This is true.
Like, you know what I mean? So like, I'm in my feelings now at this point in my head. Like, I'm like, nah, like, I've been done dirty in England. If I go to France, maybe no one, because social media wasn't what it is now back then. You know what I mean? So the exposure and stuff like that. So I was like, nah, like, no one's gonna see me. Like, if I'm like playing my reserve games or whatever, because I remember like we had the LFC TV and stuff like that then, so the exposure was massive. Like, no one's gonna see me out there, and like, it was all these things where I wish I had like someone like me now
Advising.
advising me properly, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So obviously my dad's like, nah, come back. I'm just like, oh, dad, like, but these two are, I think, I can't remember if one of them was in the Prem at the time, one was in the Championship or something, I can't remember.
Yeah.
This is
What
like
year
just
was it?
2015.
Okay, so I can't remember if Newcastle had to come back up. I think Stoke were in the Prem, but
Yeah, I think Stoke were in the Prem and Newcastle was in the Champ, I think,
yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember correctly. I'm sure that's what it was.
yeah.
So yeah, but they're like, yeah, like basically, like they're telling me to wait, and then PSG telling me to come in now. But I'm like trying to buy as much time. My dad, I'm like, oh dad, just give me a couple of days, give me a couple of days, give me a couple of days, give me a couple of days. Turns into a week, turns into 2 weeks, turns into a month. Now it's in August. Now it's like, you
Season
know,
starting. Yeah.
season's almost started, and I'm like saying to this agent, like, yo, what's going on? Like, I need to make a decision because PSG are like basically begging for me to come in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've done really, really well. Next minute, my dad gets back to me. They've pulled out the deal. They've signed another striker
Yeah.
in the academy, who on the reserve, sorry. And then I'm still waiting on this agent with
Stoke and
the
Newcastle.
Stoke and Newcastle. Next thing you know, season starts. I don't hear nothing. We speak to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, just transfer deadline because you're a free agent. We don't need to sign you by a certain time. Let's just see who we sign, and we'll know what we need to offer you then because we can sign you at any time." Basically, they're trying to like sort out the transfer thing. While I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be like patient. I'm like, obviously from the chats we had with him, it sounded positive.
Yeah, but
Next thing, yeah. So obviously, but like I said, at this time I'm 21. You know what I mean? I'm in my
yeah,
feelings,
yeah.
whatever. And the next minute, transfer window goes. A week passes. I'm trying to message his agent. The agent disappears. Ghosts.
Bruh.
Like just ghosts.
Wow.
Like blocks me on social media.
What?
Blocks my number. Like just ghosted. Like just disappeared.
Wow.
Literally just ghosted. So it was a bit mad. So when that happened, I'm just like, I've just lost my head. Like my head just gone. A couple months later, I'm trying to like figure out my own ways. I'm playing for different non-league teams, but non-league football is not really for me because since the age of like 12, 13, I've been used to training every single day.
Yeah.
But now to train twice a week in the evening and play on a Saturday,
Yeah,
it's not really motivating to me. You know what I mean? It sounds weird, but I can't get motivated for that. You know what I mean? So when I'm on a pitch on a Saturday, I'm not motivated to perform. You know what I mean? I don't feel prepared. My head's just not in it, so I'm not going to perform at all. And then the next thing was a couple months later, one of my friends who was at Liverpool with, he's now at Swindon. He'd left before the new guy came and took over, so he'd already been there for a few years. He managed to sort me out to get me in touch with the manager. I spoke with the manager. He wants me to come in on trial. We spoke about like contracts and what they can offer me, and this, that, the other guy called Mark Cooper. I had a good chat with him, good guy. And then a couple of days before me going on trial, Mark Cooper calls me again and says the chairman doesn't want me coming in, basically. I'm thinking, okay, like didn't really give a reason, but he said chairman doesn't want me coming in. A couple of days later, Liverpool have sent a couple of players on loan to Swindon. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a bit strange. And then a week or so after that, one of my teammates who went through something similar with me at Liverpool, his agent, I was telling him about what happened. His agent was like, yeah, that's because of the chairman at the club at Swindon is good mates with your old reserve manager at Liverpool. And
he's passed on the problem. Yeah.
So he even gave him a call, and I heard him on the phone basically saying, yeah, he's not gonna basically let me come on trial because I'm ex-Liverpool and he doesn't want to touch me.
Right.
Yeah, so the whole
thing. You've been blacklisted.
Yeah. Basically, I'd basically been blacklisted. So the whole thing was just bit mad, basically, to say the least. And then that's when it started making sense. I was like, okay, so when it's the same thing that happened at Bury, at Leyton Orient, at Sheffield United, plenty of probably other clubs as well, you know what I mean? Because what usually happens with these clubs is before they take me on, they'll contact Liverpool. What was he like? And you know
of course,
And in football, everyone knows each other, so you know what I mean? So like I start to understand it from then, but because I was still in my head about trying to prove people wrong, I just kept trying to go and trial here and there, and
you keep fighting.
I was trying to fight for years, but looking back on it, I'd have probably made a decision to stop from back then. You know what I mean? Just because looking back on it now, I didn't really achieve anything in that time. But then that's when like the depression comes in, the mental health, because everyone else that you was with in the reserves are now
They're all
progressing.
doing,
If not playing for the first team back at Liverpool, they're now playing first teams everywhere else in League One.
like championship, whatever.
So now I'm in my head, I'm thinking, like that should be me as well. Like I'm happy for them, don't get me wrong. But where's my opportunity? You know what I mean? So my head is gone. Like I'm now not even training. I'm not going gym. I'm not looking after myself. I've lost a lot of weight. Like I'm sleeping throughout the day, waking up, staying up all night.
Bro, this is
no
mad.
one see me. I'm like, none of my friends. Like the whole thing was just a whole mess. For a year, like literally that went on for maybe like I'd say like a year or two. Like just that consistent cycle. Like lost my head, didn't know what to do next, whether it's a job and stuff like that. So it took me years to kind of snap out of that, and then to then build on from there. You know what I mean? So to try and get help, to try and go and see a therapist, to go and see, because you know what I mean, I didn't want to acknowledge that I was going through depression, suffering with anxiety about all the things that happened. You know what I mean? And it's like I could go deeper into it, but we'd be here for hours. Like
bro.
So it was like it's just a lot of stuff that was for a 20, 21-year-old kid to be going through.
To go
with no guidance or help it's too much. You know what I mean? And these things shouldn't be happening in football, but sadly they still happen till this day. And then obviously, like I said, years had passed and I'm slowly getting help here and there. And then it was mainly up until last year in the lockdown. So I started planning the podcast because I was thinking, you know what, I think it's probably time to tell my story. Just because it may help some kids.
Absolutely.
This is like first lockdown, so this is like April times when I started planning my podcast, which I want to eventually turn into a full media company. And then next minute, when the new season started, or I think it was around October times, where there was a tragic news of the kid at City, Jeremy Whiston. Yeah. So when I heard that like really triggered
rocked
me.
You.
Rocked me big time. Like really triggered me, because just looking at a picture of himself, I could see myself in him. You know what I mean? Like young kid, like local lad. You know what I mean? So
same sort of area in the north as well.
North support. And then mate might as well. My stepbrother knows him as well, so it's it's a close to home kind of thing. So so that just like really rocked me. And I was like, you know what, I've got a duty of care for me. I definitely have to tell my story. You know what I mean? Just to show these kids that it's not the end. You know what I mean? Like, I've been there. I've been in dark places. It's literally not the end. Like now, the opportunities that I'm being presented with off the back of my podcast are unbelievable. You know what I mean? I could, in the future, create a career that will probably be a lot more successful than if I ever played football. You know what I mean? At any level. So, like, and then obviously once I did start the podcast, even with the Sharky one and stuff, the amount of kids that have hit me up is ridiculous. Till this day, like I get
like daily, basically,
daily, till now. The requests in my DMs are just it's like ridiculous. Kids that are playing for some of the biggest clubs in the world, like the Chelsea's, even Liverpool, Man United, like hitting me up saying, look, what you said is right. I'm going through this. That do you have any advice? Or I was going through this last year, and you know what I mean. So it's a lot of things, and I look at it and I'm like, I'm happy I'm able to do it now. But I look at it and also I think, if let's say obviously it would have been difficult because it was on lockdown, but if someone like a Jeremy would have heard and seen my podcast, maybe
years
you know
ago.
what I mean. That is one of the things that I'm trying to do now, to reach out to kids before it's too late. Before they make wrong decisions at clubs, to give them guidance while still in the clubs, because the most important thing is to try and stay in full-time football, because once you leave that, it's difficult. It's hell basically. So now I'm like, I'm working and speaking on the mental health side of things, but also on mindset. Because I think in the academy, that's one thing they don't really work on with players.
Mindset.
And how to carry yourself, how to do this or the other. You know what I mean? And even though I didn't hit the heights that I wanted to, I was still able to experience playing high level football, training with certain like high level world-class players.
Like Gerard, right?
Gerard, Luis Suarez, Coutinho, Sturridge. Like trained with the first team a couple of times. Like it was I got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
Trained with Raheem from a young age. trained with Connor Cody from a young age, played with together for years, you know what I mean, from the time I was 14, 15. John Stones played against
Barnsley,
Harry Maguire, Sheffield United, like all these players that are now playing for England and doing things. Kyle Walker was one of my next door neighbors, you know what I mean? So all these things, since I'm like young, I can, but it's there's a mindset that goes with it as well, you know what I mean, that all these people have, and they've got it in common. It's all different types of, it's like they're all a bit different in terms of what it is, but it's all different attributes that different people have that makes them succeed in the long run. Because it's all good and well having ability, but there's thousands of kids each year that don't make it, that have crazy ability. Like,
it's all up here.
It's all up there, and if you don't have it in your head, you'll never make it. Literally, you won't be able to hit. And I think I was destroyed once that went. You know what I mean? Like that once that was gone, then like finished. You know what I mean? So that's why with a lot of players now, I literally, more than anything, I always say to them, look, I'm not going to make you a better player in terms of your ability. But you can make yourself a better player in terms of your mentality, mindset, which will in turn help you to do the things that you do best more frequently, more consistently. You know what I mean? If you can fine tune your mind and you're doing the best things that you can do frequently, then that makes you a better player. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like Ronaldo and Messi, they're the best players in the world because they do the things that they're best at
over and over.
Exactly. So it's not like that they're doing ridiculous things. You see it here and there, like where there'll be certain players, like I don't know, his name is Zaha Townsend or winger, like certain wingers in the Prem, they'll go on a crazy run, and you'll be like, wow, that was amazing. But they can't do that over and over and over again. Well, Messi does. Why is that? It's because it's a mindset thing. And you find like, and that it takes years to build. You know what I mean? If you can build that from a young age, by the time you're making it pro, then like the world is your oyster. You know what I mean? And that's what I try to preach to like players now. So like, even though obviously I've got a normal job now, finally, I also on the side I'm looking to work as a football consultant. So any matters of football, whether it's helping players, like I said, mentally, psychologically, whether even like putting them in touch with like fitness coaches and things like that.
Every little thing.
Every aspect of football to do with even like player safety, welfare, whatever it is, any form of guidance. I'm looking to work on that side, even helping you to find new clubs. I've got connections all over the place nowadays, and basically working as a mentor as well for players. So I've had a couple of agents hit me up, and I'm working with their players on mentoring them and giving them the right kind of advice. Like we had a kid the other day, he was wanting to leave a full-time club because of certain issues, and his agent couldn't understand it. After speaking to him and then sitting down with him and stuff like that, he's now focused again and he's back playing and doing really well, and hopefully it ends his professional contract in the next couple of months. So, and these things are what I think in the football community we should be doing more. Like Expo should do more, being there for young players. Like there's a lot of coming up. I remember there was like a lot of bitter like pros at the time, like not wanting the young lad to come in and like
take their position kind of thing.
But like if that happens, then it happens. Like you know what I mean? Like if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like, but you can still give the advice, you know what I mean? Still give them the guidance that they need, you know what I mean? Because then it makes the game better for everyone going forward, you know what I mean? So I think in the next like 5 to 10 years, that's going to be the next that's going to be the next like revolution in football. And then I think like, so in the last couple of years, it was like, let's say it was like physical revolution. So it was like healthy eating and things like that. I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be the mental side.
Mental revolution.
So I think that's where it's going, and that's where it's at really.
No, bro. And first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like so many elements to it that like were like so touching, not just for me, but I'm sure the listeners and viewers will appreciate it from like the parts of your story where like it's like you're not getting reasons for like why you're not succeeding, and then all the way down to like the mental health side of things and what it did to you, and ultimately like made you leave the game because of like things that were happening that A, you had no control over, but B, like you didn't know how to handle and didn't know how to act in those situations. And the fact that you've been able to like turn that around and like have the heart and the mentality to still want to give back to the game, because not just because you have that passion, but because it's you as a person. I could even see that just from talking to you and the conversations that we've had. So yeah, just a big credit to you and big up to you for being able to turn that around and you know, being able to share your story, but still have the ambition to want to do these kind of things for, you know, young guys and girls in the game, because it's such a brutal world and it's not spoken about enough. And even the journey to like all the players that you said you've played with who are at that level, like they are like the elite ones who've like, you know, gone through all these and still managed to like stay there. But it's like they're the minority basically, because like the majority, you know, slip through the net and you know, XYZ things happen to them. So it's about, you know, capturing the majority and making sure that they either find something in the game, or even if they're going to leave football altogether, but they can still build a career, build a life. Exactly. There's just, it's all that goes into that being a footballer. And you know, that's even on a personal level, when people are like, oh, like footballers get paid too much, blah blah blah. But if you know like what like a footballer has to go through to like be on your TV screen, like I like literally I try and explain it to anyone who has the argument, because it's like it's like for the people who think they're going into a particular career, like, you know, you grew up in the academy, you're getting told XYZ all the time, blah blah blah, agents, and then you can just get dropped like that, and then like you're gone like into the abyss basically. Like that happens all the time. But the ones that you see on your TV screen, it's like they might have had that and then come back, or like they've had some kind of mentality, as you mentioned, that to just keep going and going and going. And that's the people that you see, you know, on your TV screens and stuff. So for them to achieve that is like amazing in itself. To overcome the hurdle. So it's crazy. But yeah, just big credit to you, bro, because it's your story is inspiring. I've heard it already, but every time I hear it, like, cause I listen to Sharky's pod first of all, and then but even hearing it every time, it's just like it's heartwarming, man. So thank you, bro.
No, definitely, I appreciate it, man. Definitely.
But yeah, that's going to wrap up part one of Henoc's story, and then join us in part two, where we're going to talk more about, you know, discrimination issues and a bit more about sort of the current issues and get Henoc's thoughts on some of those subjects. So yeah, stay tuned, subscribe so you don't miss part two, turn the notification bell on, and we'll catch you in a bit.
Hashtag BTHPOD.